Okay, this is Tim Cummins back with you here on another Story Tim. Well, I've told you a couple of snake stories, and this is another one that I've experienced with you. Now, you know, out of all of the animals that I dealt with in Africa, there was really only one that I was really afraid of. It was very common for me to go what I would call bundu bashing, where I would be out and I would park my car. I had passes to the game park, so I would park my car inside the game park. I would take out my big stick, which was usually about 6 foot tall, about, I don't know, maybe 3 inches around, something like that. And I would go Timbea, which I would go and walk out in the bush with my big stick. And really, I felt like pretty much everything was going to leave me alone, but the only thing that I had a fear of was spitting cobras. Because if you got sprayed in the face by a spitting cobra, you couldn't see to get back to the car, and you can't drive with your eyes closed. I mean, some people may try to drive with their eyes closed. I don't recommend that. And so, and I was normally living by myself, out in the game parks by myself. Even though I had friends that were, you know, living at the house with me, they would have no idea where I was in that game park, nor did they have any inclination to go and try and find me, because, I mean, they would just knew, hey, Tim's going to do what Tim's going to do, and, you know, you hope for the best. Well, fortunately, I never was up against a spitting cobra out in the bush, but I was against a spitting cobra one time when I worked in the Nairobi Snake Park. I can remember I was in the snake park, and there were some snakes that I really did not like to have to clean the cages. Cobras, I hated trying to clean cobra cages because they were very aggressive. They're constantly striking at you, striking at you, striking at you. Like when you're having to go inside and try to clean the inside of the glass and try to clean out the crap, and they're just striking at you, and you had another guy with a snake stick trying to keep them back from you. And you're hoping that those guys are really knowing what they're doing, because you don't want the snake coming up your leg. But I remember one time in particular, we said we were going to have to go out and clean out the ring calls cage. Now, the ring calls is actually not a cobra per se, but it's still got the kind of a spreading hood, and the ring calls does spit. So they got the name of the spitting cobra. Now, what happens is that when the cobra, who doesn't have particularly big fangs, a cobra's fangs are only about maybe a ½ inch, something like that. As opposed to, like, here in the States when we got like rattlesnakes, like diamond rattlesnake, a good sized diamondback rattlesnake will have a fang at 1 inch long. The rattlesnakes, like puff adders or gaboon vipers in Africa, will actually, their fangs are folded up against the top of the roof of their mouth, and when they open up, they fold down, as opposed to like cobras, which actually have smaller fangs, but they're fixed fangs, so they don't fold back up. So these, normally in the fangs, like in most cobras, the hole where they inject the poison at the end of the fang is behind the fang, like towards the back of the snake's mouth. But on a spitting cobra, the hole is actually at the front of the fang, so that when it opens its mouth up wide and exerts pressure, you get a spray of venom. Well, of course, I had seen that quite often, but this particular day I was asked to come and help clean the spitting cobra cages. Well, I was already like, okay, all right. Okay, all right. Okay, so what are we going to do? So I had one snake stick. My friend Peter, he had another snake stick, the African guy, Peter, and he said, now Tim, look, you got to put on these goggles, you know, like a face mask, like you would go like snorkeling in, right? You put on these face masks. You stay behind me, one, okay? And we're gonna go to get this thing. I'm going to get the snake behind to push against the wall, and then you can clean up behind me, and it can be no problem, okay? So I'm like, well, I guess. Now, if you ever wondered, now here's this kid in 8th grade. Did his mama know I was doing this sort of stuff? What do you think? So I got in there behind Peter. I had the goggles on real nice and tight. He said, you got to make sure they're tight. Yeah, they're tight. You don't want that poison to go in the side. So I'm like, oh, okay, all right, they're nice and tight, and stretching them on so much like, you're going to have like a red marks around your face for the rest of the day, I got them so daggum tight. So we get in there. There were 2 ring calls. They're black on the bottom, black on the top, but when they raise up in a fighting position, it's kind of this very nice kind of creamy pink color. It's kind of pretty when you think about it, but I mean, at that time I was just kind of alarmed more than, isn't that a lovely shade of pink, So anyway, it was raised up as Peter had told me it was going to do, and as I'd seen spitting cobras in action before, I knew that's what was going to happen. And of course, he proceeded to spray Peter and myself with this venom. So it would look towards me and just kind of semi-lunge towards me. It wasn't like jumping at you. It was like he would kind of lunge slightly at you. And when he did, there would just be this spray, and you'd have these things, and the accuracy was phenomenal because you would see exactly where your eyes were. That's where the spray pattern hit. And he hit me a couple of times with that stuff, and then Peter would get him back on the snake stick, and he says, quickly, Peter was like, quick, come on, get that place clean. So I'd have this like kind of pan looking thing, and I would sweep the snake crap up, and I would clean where the water was, we put fresh water, and then as he was kind of keeping it back to the back of the cage while I was doing that, and I said, okay, Peter, it's clean, man. And so he said, okay, go out the back. So he would go out the back, and I would hold the door open for him, and he would kind of keep the snake at bay. And then he would, come out backwards towards me, and then we would close the door behind him. We made it safely, and I got that goggle off, man. He says, now you got to really wash your hands good, Tim. You can't have any of that stuff around you, because even if you just rubbed your face and had that stuff, so I'd wash all my face off and everything. But I didn't go blind, and the spitting cobra didn't get me. So I was safe to live another day and mess with another snake. And that was another story time.